Boeing, one of the stories certainly affecting the market at the moment. The company has reaffirmed the timing of a software update for the now grounded 737 MAX jet. Boeing says the update will be deployed in the coming weeks. Shares actually ticked higher on the back of an earlier report suggesting the timeline could be a little bit shorter. Bloomberg's Brooke Sutherland joining us now. Brooke, let's talk a little bit about how Boeing fixes this problem. There is a suggestion that we are going to see this software upgrade being put in to this stall software system. My question is that going to be enough to satisfy regulators, or are they going to want additional sensors to be applied to this aircraft as well?
Right. I mean, so I think what we're talking about right now is the software fix. It's a relatively quick fix. It takes about an hour to download. And the reporting on this is that it's going to require this flight control system to rely on data from two sensors. It previously was dependent only on one. And obviously, when you saw that sensor misfire, as is seemingly the case in the Lion Air crash and potentially in the Ethiopian Airlines crash, that can cause the system to force the plane's nose down. It will also sort of limit the amount of pressure that the system can actually push on the nose, which potentially could mitigate, the likelihood of a crash. Now, the big question is, whether or not the FAA requires additional steps. And to know that, we really have to have the outcome of the investigation into the Ethiopian Airlines crash, and we don't have that yet. The transport minister there is expecting an update over the weekend, and that could offer some more details. Regardless, I think you're going to want to see the FAA requiring Boeing to go through some hoops here to push out the software fix. I mean, I think they also have their reputation on the line. So at the very least, you're likely to see mandates of flight testing and potentially other certification procedures.
So AFP coming out and saying within 10 days, according to a source, Boeing just reaffirming that it's going to be within the next several weeks. Is timing urgent? Is it better if it's in the next 10 days? Does it matter if it's a few weeks? Well, they're grounded now anyway, and this may not be the end of it.
Right. I mean, I think the big question is why it wasn't more urgent before, because you did have this Lion Air crash in October. There's reporting from the Wall Street Journal saying that Boeing and the FAA were going back and forth debating about the technical aspects of this software fix. Obviously, then, with the lack of a fix, potentially contributed to the Ethiopian Airlines crash. And so I think urgency now is the name of the game, but obviously you want to make sure that you get this right. And so I think, to your point, the planes are grounded. I think they're going to want to be absolutely 100% sure before they lift that ban and put them back in the air.
Yeah.
Brooke, can I just come back to this issue of kind of the hoops that Boeing may have to jump through to get this aircraft back in the air? There wasn't a certification process, a full certification process, as you progressed from the 800 to the MAX. Do you think if they apply and put more sensors into the system, could that result in a full recertification of the airframe?
I don't think that alone would, but I think you raise a really interesting point that, they sort of rejiggered an existing design to accommodate these new engines that they wanted to put on the plane. They're bigger, but they're also more fuel efficient, and that threw off sort of the center of gravity for these planes. As you said, they did not go through a complete recertification for that, and I think that decision by both Boeing and by the FAA to allow them to proceed with that is now under, a very harsh spotlight, and I think you are going to see people asking questions about whether or not that was the right move. And there's also been talk of, does Boeing need to potentially redesign its airplane, come out with a totally new design and spend the money on that to get an airplane that's actually designed for these engines?